Well, hello, folks. Welcome to Gelvin Valley. Not even sure what episode this is. We've all been here before and we know the drill. And actually, I'm just remembering, let me start up my little timer. This is a gift that Atomic 67 gave to me so I would know when 30 minutes are reached. And I always forget. Here you can hear the tick, tick, tick. I always forget to set it up. I'm remembering now. Alright, let's go farm. Go through our machinery here real quick. We left off rolling a field. It's kind of where we want to go now. Let's get this puppy going. Our nose is kind of in the... I think we'll take another round around the field so we can take care of these, or at least get the outer edge established, if you will. And then I'm going to come back. Come on, get that one. There we go. I love this roller, getting rid of the rocks. Got some hills to deal with here. Oh no, it's stuck in the trailer hitch. Or the hitch there. So last episode I kind of showcased a little mod I'm working on with the fire and some dynamite, and I don't really have anything exciting like that to share in here this time. Is that a tiny... Oh, that's probably not a rock. This will be just work here. We can continue the farm. But I did have a question, and I've probably asked it before. You know, this is now 120 some episodes of this map that I've done. Maybe according to some who've suffered through this, it's 120 episodes too many. But if I haven't asked it before... Hey, now. Did you just skip over that one? Oh, interesting. Alright, maybe that one is too big to be taken out with a roller. Alright, we'll pick them up later. We know we're going to have some of those in here. It looked small enough to be taken out, but it wasn't. But anyway, you've been with me quite a while here. You've seen kind of what I'm doing. I enjoy arable farming, and that's kind of why I've done primarily that in here. I guess a question I have for you is, what would you do if you were in this map that's different from what I'm doing? I might be carrying a bunch. Yeah, some of those I think I just heard hit the... There's a trigger on this roller. That's kind of what destroys the rock or simulates pushing it into the ground. So some of them I think accumulated kind of on the edge and got pulled up the hill. Yeah, these here. Let's see if I can nail them. Oh, good. So pleasing to hear the ones that I can get smashed. But what would you do differently? You know, the map author, Wild Wild Wes, also played this for quite a while. He has a number of... They're pretty lengthy videos. I'm sure I've linked to him. I know in the video description I have a link to his channel, so you can go look him up. He isn't active anymore, but for a while he played extensively the map, you know, that he created, and his style of playing is different from mine. He mainly did it first person, and I just like the beauty of what I see in the map, and there's no way I can enjoy that doing it from a first-person perspective. So I tend to want to be out of cab. He mainly did it in cab. Each to their own. Oh, it's not going to let me... Let me see if I can go over that. Yeah, that's the challenge of some of this, is some of these bigger rocks, it's just going to accumulate them kind of on the edge of the roller. But in his play style, I seem to recall he installed quite a number of greenhouses, so he had some fresh vegetables to haul to market, so he set up some placeables for that. He also, as I recall, did a fair amount of livestock, probably because, as I understand it, this particular area in real life, or whatever he was trying to mimic, is Perhaps similar, I don't know if it's similar to where he grew up, but it's intended for livestock, if you will. Yep, that's another one that's not going to let me. There we go. And so most of these hills, maybe what I should be doing is planting them in grass by all rights and considering them, usable for livestock. The trouble is, in this version of Farming Sim, let me just pull him off to the side. And sometimes that has to be done in real life. In this version of Farming Sim, you couldn't just move your animals willy-nilly anywhere you wanted to. There had to be a designated area for pastures, and yeah, you're kind of stuck with that. Although that's mainly for, I guess in this era would have been sheep and milk cattle. But I think he had some hogs installed. Alright, so let me set up a GPS. Let me see if I can do this right. Get this going. And that looks like it needs to be a little bit wider. Oh, wait. Maybe if I do, is it... I thought it was Control-Enter that did it, but maybe it... Okay, let me just try that. And that, of course, isn't gonna... Let me try to do a slightly different angle. That'll work. How about that? So he had some animals going on here. I'm not sure the exact name of those mods. I think they were special scripts embedded into the map that the player could use. But you do have to have a few special mods, in order to work with those other animal mods. And I think it can be for chickens, beef cattle, and hogs, and maybe there's even something for sheep, if you're producing mutton or lamb or something. I really don't know. All of those at this stage of the game would have been add-on mods. The Giants, for whatever reason, chose not to have. Is it still that way, where you don't have slaughterhouses or basically the killing of animals for food? I think back in this era, it was milk that you could have as a product, wool, eggs, but there was nothing else you could do, with the animal. And maybe it's still that way in Farm Sim 22. So it always takes mods, to get that extra functionality. But I do hope to do that at some point. Oh, no, this rock be smashed. Are you smashable? And it was. Yeah, some of them just aren't quite big enough to fit under that roller, which is okay. It just ends up taking a little bit longer to get through it. And I was generous with however many rocks were being dug up. And this is pulling quite a hill. Sometimes the angle that I have it, you can't always appreciate just how steep this is in here. Which means when we come through here with our little combine, we're going to have ourselves a good time. Yes, we are. But anyway, you've all seen this map for a while. Maybe you've imagined, dreamed, whatever, what you would do with it. I'd be curious to know. So, if you want to leave a comment, I'd love to read your responses. Lets me know that somebody out there listening has a pulse. Even though it may only be Russell that replies. Oh, and this is another one. We're going to have to go up and around. This field's going to try my patience. There we go. But we'll make it through. So eventually, like I say, I would like to do it. I think I have a mod that can do it. See, down in the middle, kind of where our main farm is a beef farm. I kind of was thinking I would try some hogs. Oh, wait, that's milk cattle over there. Is there hogs on here? Oh, there is. Way over there by field number 29 is actually where the pork is. So, I'm not sure what I was thinking of hogs. Shoot, maybe I could do beef. Growing up, I had an uncle who was a hog farmer. Actually, more than one of them. Some of them don't live here. In the area where I live, it's pretty rare to see pork raised for anything other than just recreation, if you will. Maybe for the county fair. Um, but there was an uncle of mine that tried to raise them commercially here. I do know there are some specialty hogs raised here. Years ago, when I worked in Portland, one of our audit clients was a cattle ranch, and along with the ranch, they had a slaughterhouse, and they also slaughtered hogs there as well. I think it was a Japanese company that had owned it, as I recall. Uh, but you just don't see very much of it. We're too far away from a decent feed source. I dragged that rock all the way out. See if I can go over the top of that. I don't want to scatter them too far afield, because I got to come back through here with a trailer to pick them up. So try to keep these somewhat in line. But anyways, I've thought about this map. I've thought a lot about my uncle and the days that he raised hogs, and at some point he gave it up. It was just too difficult, and so he no longer raises hogs. He went on to do something else as a career, and now I think he has a winery and grapes and some of those kinds of things, which there are quite a bit of in this area. But that's kind of what he's doing now. Oh, look at that. I missed a little spot. You know what? That's okay. Fields sometimes have missed spots. What can I say? And then my other uncles, including those at Lone Oak, I don't know if they have any currently. I kind of think they do. They have we always called it the Canyon. It's to the west, on the Lone Oak map, which some of you have played for Farm Sim 17 or 19. It's kind of to the west of the map. West and south a little bit is what they call the Canyon. It's some property that's primarily pasture and woodlands and that kind of thing, where they have some cattle. And over the years, I mean, they've had varying numbers of cattle in there. And so, and those weren't kept for milk. I think a long time ago, before my birth, maybe even, they would have more milk cattle around for family use or whatever. But nowadays they don't have any, but they do have some beef cattle down there. So I may try to raise some of those in here. I guess, shoot, that's where I chose to put my main farm. So, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not giving anybody vertigo as the vehicle camera zooms in and out of all these trees, that kind of get in the way. On that, sometimes people will install disable the vehicle camera mod. What's that called? I forget what it is, but basically it no longer zooms in and out every time it encounters a hard object between you and the tractor. I have tended to not like that, because whenever I drive a vehicle inside a building, or even if I'm not, I like seeing my tractor all the time, as much as I can. Oh, hey, I got rid of that rock. I was thinking it ignored it. It must have slipped through the trigger. Alright, I'm going to kind of move this rock a little bit off of the hill. Let's just hope the next time we work this, we don't pull up so many rocks. That's all I can say. Once again, this is one whale of a hill. In real life, I'm not sure it'd be smart to till this up like we are. This would be definitely a candidate for no-till, to help keep erosion down. But thankfully, in Gelvin Valley, erosion is reported to be very low, so that's a good thing. I don't know if they could ever build something like that into Farming Sim. That'd be a pretty interesting mod, I think, if you could somehow simulate erosion, but I probably no way you could do it at least until Farm Sim 22. And even then, I think you'd be hard pressed, and it'd probably just be one of those mods that would annoy the stuffing out of the player. You know, if you somehow dug deep ruts in all the fields for erosion, yeah, it'd probably be just kind of a pain, because then the player would be left wondering, well, how do I fix this? And if there's no easy way to fix it, it just becomes, that's maybe a little bit too much attempt at realism. Yeah, I know we've talked about this before. Some are quite fastidious about realism in here, but thing that breaks it down is like if you really want to be real, then you're going to have to wait a whole year for your crop to grow. Well, I don't know of anybody that's been willing to do that. So I think we all have our varying degrees of realism that we expect out of this game. So, what would you do in here? I'm going to try animals at some point. Don't know when. In the meantime, I'm going to turn this into hillside of something. I'm not sure just what I'll grow. Crop planting is going to come after this. Both this hillside and, you know, every other field, you know, that we farm in here. I'm going to have to go back to my notes. Because at one point... well, let me just look at it now. Let me see where our prices. 118 for wheat, barley, corn is coming up. You know, I think we've talked about this before. The map author purposefully depressed the price of silage. Back in this era of the farming sim franchise, you could make a fortune raising corn, turning it into silage, rinse and repeat, and then selling the silage, you know, like at a BGA or something. This here he toned way down. He put in kind of a, not really a multiplier, I mean it's a sub 1 multiplier on the prices for silage, so you're not going to make it out like a bandit, you know, by raising silage in here. But I do think that it's still a cut above, maybe just barely, some of the other cropping options. So we'll see. I may put in some corn, try rent some equipment to cut it and chop it and turn it into silage and see if we can turn a buck on it. But I definitely don't think I'm going to do that, all of it. Maybe I won't do it this particular time either. And I know he has one sell point in here where it's one of those, it's pretty clever actually, it's another attempt at realism where they will accept a certain amount of product per hour and no more. And I think what it is it's a script on a trigger, and a trigger is something you can dump the crop into, if you will, to sell it. And as you dump the product in, the trigger rotates itself into the ground and is no longer above ground or above the surface of the map. And so therefore it isn't accessible to dump more material into. And then I think over time, the trigger will rotate back up to the surface so the player can continue putting stuff in there. But it's kind of a cool little feature, you know, in real life, much to the contrary wishes of the farmers who wish they could take all their crop and sell it maybe at the same place. They would take all of their crop and every shred that they could bring to them and take more. Well, real life just doesn't work that way. Oftentimes there's contracts that are specific as to how much, you know, the buyer's going to take. Maybe they'll take it all, but sometimes they don't. And so the farmers are left, you know, with trying to sell it to someone else or leaving it in the field. You know, some painful choices. So I think it's kind of cool that he built something like that, add it into the map. And I know there's one particular area that takes silage. that is on a trigger kind of like that, but I don't recall offhand how much it takes. So, and it may not be very much at all. But what it does take, it'll pay a premium above the standard place where you can take silage. So it may still be worth hauling some up there. So we may give that a try a little bit. We'll just see. There. I like those little rocks that slip right under the side of the roller so I don't have to lift it. Because I'm kind of a lazy person, I guess. Here's another little one that should go just fine. And it does. Yeah, there's definitely some larger ones. I see some tiny ones. You know, really, when I was working on this roller mod, I mean, it was deliberate to make some of those smaller rocks, you know, so that this roller had something to do. This might be, yeah, it's not going to let me do that, is it? So I'm going to have to just escort this rock kind of down here, out of the way. Easy peasy. And then we'll continue on our way here. Just trying to get the seed bed all ready for planting. And you know, in real life, what would really happen, probably now that I think about it, we wouldn't be coming through here with a roller right now. What we would do first is we'd probably come in here and pick up the big rocks, the ones that we know are big enough that there's no way the roller's gonna just turn them under or pound them under. We'd get rid of the big rocks, then we would come in here with a roller. So I'm maybe giving myself more pain than necessary and having to go around these larger rocks, but that's okay. You know what? I'm not a farmer, so what do I know? Come on, blink. There we go. I love that sound. You know, if you watched the earlier video, you could see those rocks getting dug out of the ground, and that was one of the first mods that I ever made. And then I made it again for 17, and in the 17 version, I tried to add a few more bells and whistles, if you will. And one of those things was to have noise made when the rock was dug out. You know, even in a cabbed tractor, if you will, if you're pulling some of that heavy machinery through the fields, a lot of times you can hear it hit rocks. You'll hear a shank, you know, kind of clink or rattle or something, and you know you've hit a rock that's in the soil. And so I wanted to try to simulate that, but I don't have that on the 15 version. So the only way I get to hear that little clink, as if it's necessary to hear a clink, is on this roller mod, because I just added it in so I could hear it. And it's the same sound every time. I think when I did it for the rock spawn mod, I downloaded several different sounds, none of which are the real sounds, incidentally. I mean, it's, come on, there we go, roll that out. A lot of these sounds, I think, are made with, like, oh, you look at an online sound library, and it'd be something like the sound of a rake scratching concrete, or dropping a metal box on a wooden floor. And so I'd be just testing or listening to some of these sounds. It's like, well, maybe that would pass as the sound it would make, you know, with a rock hitting the shanks of your chisel plow. Yeah, that might work. So that's all the more science that went into how the sounds were chosen. But this one here is a straight up just a little clink. Alright, get back on my GPS. Yeah, we definitely need to come through here at some point with a trailer. Here's another little one there that'll probably go down. We're coming for you, little guy. Oh, this is incredibly steep. I just love it. Yeah, I know I've said it before. I just really enjoy hillside agriculture. Some of those hills give a guy the willies, but they're fun. They're challenging nonetheless, and really there's a beauty of them too. A couple weeks ago, our family took a trip to the Midwest area of our country and went to Iowa, Minnesota. And I know those places a lot of times are considered flat ground, and maybe it depends on where you're at. What they don't have for sure is mountains. So you look out on the horizon, and yeah, it's definitely flat. You don't see those big bumps off in the distance that we call mountains. But getting there, to get to Iowa from our home here is about a 2.5 day drive. Long days. I don't know how that works out in miles. I don't think it's 2,000 miles, maybe 15, 1,600 of them, something like that. Well, you go through a whole lot of pretty territory. We left Oregon, went through Washington, into the northern tip of Idaho, Montana, down into Wyoming for a spell, and South Dakota, clear over to Iowa. And then obviously from Iowa's right next door to Minnesota, so that one was pretty easy. But those were the states we were in, and so there was quite a few mountainous regions, we could go through. But one area in particular that I want to mention when it comes to hillsides and farming that, in my humble opinion, can't be beat if you enjoy that kind of thing is Washington's Palouse country. And I can't remember if I've mentioned the Palouse before. I could so easily live there because it just does something for me. And it's a region of eastern Washington, kind of southeast, if you will, um, starting kind of up about, well, I don't know where it officially starts, up by Spokane. Kind of think of that as kind of the northern end, near the border of Washington and Idaho. Maybe comes west, at least where it's observable, west to almost the Tri-Cities area, where the Columbia River comes down through there. I think a part of it maybe even extends down into Oregon. I'm not sure how much of it. But definitely in the southeast corner of Washington is where most of it is. Oh, and a little bit over into Idaho, too. And as I understand, it was caused many eons ago with, I think it was called the Missoula Flood, where maybe at the close of the Ice Age, with all this water trapped on the higher mountains up there near Missoula, which is in Montana, that at some point an ice dam gave way and a whole bunch of water came pouring down through Idaho and Washington and deposited all this high quality soil in this area, and the water made it funny shapes. If you drive through there, it looks like it makes, oh, I got stuck. No rhyme or reason. Usually when you encounter a hill or water, it goes down a ravine between a couple hills or whatever. And of course, it does add in the Palouse too. But usually, they seem to have a rhyme or reason. I mean, it makes sense. Kind of like if you're living in the valley, you see where the mountains are. The mountains are over there. And as you get closer to them, the hills get bigger. I mean, they call that foothills. And it kind of makes sense. But in the Palouse, I know there's kind of a general direction of how it's laid out, if you will. But there's hills going every which direction you can imagine. And in the summer, which is when we went through there recently here, when it's full of wheat, it looks literally like an ocean of wheat. I mean, it's just waves. I guess our country has a song, in one of its patriotic songs for amber waves of grain, mentions purple mountains. Well, the amber waves of grain, I mean, literally, it looks like Google it sometime. The Palouse, Washington wheat, hillside farming, whatever search terms you want to use, and you'll see it, what it kind of looks like. And if you get up high, it just looks like waves of the sea that are comprised of wheat. In the spring, when everything is green, it just looks gorgeous, and I mean it's a beautiful place, no matter what time of year. So my wife and we came home from this family trip. We're not up there very often. It's probably a 5 to 6 hour drive from our home to get kind of up in the heart of that area. Oh my word, I just jumped out of my skin. Thank you, Atomic, for the alarm clock to tell me when 30 minutes was reached. Maybe I'll have to table this for the moment and talk about the Palouse some other time. It's just a beautiful, fantastic wheat growing region, and filled with lovely hills. And yeah, it kind of makes me think of it on this map as I travel across this massive hill and try to do a little work on it on our own Gelvin Valley farm. So, well, you all heard the alarm, and it tells me that we've come across a half an hour already. It always seems like it goes quick. So I'll say thank you for coming along for the ride here in this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye for now.